everyone, my name is Nadia and I'm from English Department of Erlangga University. My student number is 122-111-233-034 and I'm here to tell you about my book report. The title of the book that I read is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. It has 313 pages. The type of the book is a novel book. Setting takes place in Indianapolis and Amsterdam, while the setting time is between 2008 and 2012. Why do I choose this book? It's because I'm not really a book lover, but I like to try new things, especially on books, because reading has been my weakness ever since. A friend said that I read too slow. Because of that, I got a little insecure about my reading skill, so I am trying to improve my reading skill by trying reading books that I have interest at, such as comics, romance novel, horror or thriller books, and book with mysteries always got my curiosity off the roof. I have seen so much hype about The Fault in Our Stars on the internet, it got my attention and I thought to myself, let's give it a try, because sometimes what everyone hyped about is just a common thing. But did I regret this one? The answer is no. I'm so glad I decided to read this book because it was the best decision ever. The Fault in Our Stars is a beautiful novel and I would recommend it to anyone who believes in love and has the courage to fight for it. Through this book I realized that cancer not just touches victims, but it also touches all those who love. Also, it inspires me because it showed me that even when I'm dying, I still have to make the most of the time that I have, if I possibly can, that I should always try and live every day to the fullest, and I should live every day as if it's my last. Characters and plot. Characters in this book are Hazel Grace Lancaster and Augustus Waters and Isaac, Mr. Lancaster, Mrs. Lancaster, Peter Van Houten, Patrick Augustus's parents, Dr. Maria, Lightwitch Flickerhart, Caitlin, Monica, Caroline Mathers, and Anna. Plot is Hazel suffers from stage 4 thyroid cancer and is always seen carrying an oxygen tank with a cannula in her nose for her to breathe. At the behest of her mother Franny and her father Michael and her Dr. Maria, she attends a cancer support group at a church called the Literal Heart of Jesus. The person running it is a man named Patrick, who had testicular cancer and is now divorced and lives with his parents, but is positive because he is alive. Franny wants Hazel to make friends, but as Hazel says, the only thing worse than biting it from cancer is having a kid that bites it from cancer. Hazel is 16 and is reluctant to this support group, but she soon realizes that it was a good idea. Hazel meets a young boy named Augustus Waters. He is a charming and witty. Augustus has had osteosarcoma, a rare form of bone cancer, but has recently had the all clear. While Augustus recklessly drives to his house, he asks Hazel about her cancer story. She tells him that she was diagnosed when she was 13 and went through all the required treatment, but it wasn't working. Her lungs began to fill with water and she was treated in the ICU. And one day, the medication she was given began to work well, which was considered to be miraculous. Hazel and Gus arrive at his home and meet his parents. He brings Hazel to the basement and asks her to tell him her real story, not her cancer story. She claims to be unremarkable, but he rejects that. He gives her a copy of his favorite book based on his favorite video game, Counter-Insurgents. Hazel in return recommends her favorite book, An Immoral Affliction, which is about a girl that has leukemia, but she tells Gus that it is not necessarily a cancer story. Hazel and Augustus embark on a roller coaster ride of emotions, including love, sadness, and romance. While searching for the author of their favorite book, they travel to Amsterdam in search of Peter Van Houten, the author of An Immoral Affliction. While on their trip, Augustus breaks some heartbreaking news to Hazel and both of their worlds fall apart around them. My general opinion. In my opinion, this book is very interesting. Knowing myself, I always wanted to know what love really is, so I'm trying to find it almost everywhere and in every way. Surprisingly, but not shocking, there's a lot of stories that scream, this is love. Some of those stories doesn't make sense, but when I see through it, I'm starting to understand that love has so many forms. In this story, Hazel and August met not for a long period of time, but those time they had together proved that how long doesn't really matter. They found love at their pace and place. They have their own story, and that story isn't like those stereotype of love story. I find that very beautiful because two humans that meet at a certain point and then love just happens. I like how the story keeps me invested and want to flip the pages again and again because I'm curious as to what's going to happen next. The characters in this book are pictured perfectly with the writer's words. This book made a lot of people cry, including me, because the writer can bring the readers into the story's world so that we feel extremely deep into the story. Even though the story didn't end in a way I wanted, it is still a great book to read. Amazing even. The characters, the plot, the words, the settings, the whole story are amazing. What I like the most about this book is the plot of the story. The story is not like any other romance storybook. It is different and give a fresh experience after reading the book. I like the way that this book is written with such amazing diction. I like how the story keeps me invested and want to flip the pages again because I am so curious as to what is going to happen next. The characters in this book are pictured very well with the writer's words as well as the surroundings, the atmosphere. I have read that a lot of people cried after reading this book, and for someone who does not really cry on books, this one really made me cry. The story and characterization made this book a perfect book to read because the writer can bring the readers into the story's world so that we feel extremely deep into the story. Even though the story didn't end in a way I wanted, it's still a great book to read. Amazing. The characters, the plot, the words, settings, and the whole story is amazing. What do I like the least? I actually don't know what to dislike from this book because this book is just so good. Almost everything. I love every details this book has. Overall, it is a very good book. Maybe I just hate the fact that Augustus had to die and left Hazel alone. I always hated a character's death even if it's just fiction, but the heartbreak is being felt real. The story wouldn't be the same without them who has in the story since the beginning, especially the main character. The loss of a crucial character in the story brought me a lot of pain in the chest. I cried because of the book. Even if I'm not really the type of person who cries after reading a book, if it's a movie, then yes, I cried a lot during sad scenes on movies, but crying from book is obviously a whole new different experience. The end of The Fault in Our Stars was a disappointment, not because it was written badly or had a bad ending or anything like that. It was because it didn't end how I really wished it would, but I think that was the point. Cancer doesn't always end happily. The whole way through the book you hope that it was going to have that fairy tale ending, but that isn't how life works. Life brings disappointment. It upsets, it kills, it destroys, but it also brings joy, love, sacrifice, heartbreak, friendship. John Green gave a perfect insight into what it must feel like to know that any breath could be your last. And he got the readers hoping that the only way it possibly could end wouldn't be the way it did. My favorite quotation from this book is, "What else? She's so beautiful. You don't get tired of looking at her. You never worry if she is smarter than you. You know she is. She is funny without ever being mean. I love her. I am so lucky to love her, Van Houten. You don't get to choose if you get hurt in this world, old man, but you do have some way in who hurts you. I like my choices. I hope she likes hers. I do, Augustus, I do. And pain demands to be felt." I read this book with 4 stars. It's a great book. Yes, I would definitely recommend this book to my friends because this book is worth the read. The story in this novel is so intriguing, so people would read this book with interest that grows more and more each time they flip the page. The story kept me invested and want to flip the pages again. Because I'm so curious as to what is going to happen next. Also, this novel is suitable for teenagers since the characters are still teenagers too. So it will be easier for them to read, imagine, relate, and feeling the story more deeply. This novel is not like any other romance storybook. It is different and give a fresh experience after reading the book. This book is written with such amazing diction, so I think this book will help a little with our vocabulary selection. The characters in this book are pictured very well with the writer's words, as well as the surroundings, the atmosphere. I have read a lot of people cried after reading this book, and for someone who doesn't really cry on this book made me cry. The story and the characterization made this book a perfect book to read because the writer can bring the readers into the story's world so that we feel extremely deep into the story. Even though the story didn't end in a way I wanted, it's still a great book to read. The characters, the plot, the words, the settings, the story is super amazing.